The moment Captain Elias Kane stepped out of the shuttle, he felt the weight of 1,000 eyes on him. The palace of Violia rose like a giant crystal above the clouds, shimmering in colors he had never seen before. Its towers reflected the pale light of Violia's twin suns, casting dancing patterns on the smooth ground. The air smelled faintly sweet, like flowers mixed with something metallic, and every sound seemed to echo in the vast courtyard. Elias adjusted the straps of his uniform, trying to look calm, though his stomach twisted with unease. He had negotiated peace before, but never with a species so alien, so different from anything human. The courtyard was filled with Violian guards and officials. They had pale blue skin, their eyes sharp and silver, their movements precise and almost unnervingly graceful. They whispered among themselves as Elias walked past, glancing at him with something between curiosity and caution. The humans were outsiders here, rare and often mistrusted. Every step he took felt like walking on thin ice. "Welcome, Captain Kane," said a voice from the left. Elias turned to see an older alien in a flowing silver robe. His eyes were narrower than most Violians, and his expression was calm, almost regal. "I am Counselor Rillan. The princess awaits you. Watch carefully." Every corner held subtle movement, floating lights, silent drones, or maybe something alive he could not identify. He had to remind himself to breathe. At the end of the hall, a figure appeared, and the crowd seemed to part without effort. She was tall and slender, with hair that shimmered silver and eyes like molten gold. Her robes flowed behind her as if they had a life of their own. Elias felt a sudden tug at his chest, a feeling he could not explain. The Princess Lyra, as he had been told, was more than beautiful. There was a presence about her, a quiet authority that made the room still. Even the guards, standing rigid as statues, seemed to shrink back in her aura. She looked directly at him, and for a moment, Elias forgot how to move or speak. He had expected formality, distance, perhaps even suspicion, but not this intensity. Her golden eyes seemed to see into him, into everything human about him, and he felt both exposed and oddly understood. "You are Elias Kane," she said softly, her voice musical but firm. "The human who has come to our world. I am honored to be here." Gasps and whispers floated through the hall, but Elias could only stand frozen, unsure of what to do. The contact was brief but firm, and it carried a warmth that he had never felt from an alien before. His mind raced. Was this a greeting, a mistake, or something else entirely? "Why?" he began, but Lyra released him gently and stepped back, her eyes still fixed on his. "You are the one I have seen," she said simply, "the one I have waited for. There is much for him to learn." "I come in peace," he said, keeping his voice steady. "I wish to understand your people and to help find a path to cooperation. I cannot change the past, but I can work for the future. And I believe that humans and Violians are stronger together than apart. But sometimes it comes from seeing something unexpected." The rigid, cautious air seemed softer now, as if Lyra's action had created a crack through which hope could enter. The council continued with formalities, showing him the palace and explaining Violia's history, politics, and recent conflicts. Elias listened carefully, asking questions when appropriate, and was surprised to find that his human perspective offered insights the aliens had not considered. They had long relied on tradition, logic, and established patterns, but Elias' ideas were fresh and unexpected. As the day progressed, Elias began to notice subtle reactions to him wherever he went. Guards gave him a little more space, counselors spoke in tones less sharp than before, and even the palace staff seemed slightly more relaxed. It was as if Lyra's gesture had changed not just the atmosphere, but the way everyone perceived him. He realized the hug had been more than a greeting, it had been a declaration, a signal that humans might have a role here that no one had anticipated. Later, he was led to a quiet garden inside the palace. The air was fragrant, and strange, glowing plants swayed gently in an unseen breeze. Lyra followed him silently and finally spoke again. "Elias," she said, "there are forces beyond this palace, beyond Violia itself, that threaten our world. I do not yet know the details, but I have seen that you are connected to what is coming. That is why I reached for you." But something in her tone, in the certainty of her words, made him pause. She was not just guessing. She knew. And for the first time in his life, Elias felt that he had a place somewhere beyond Earth, beyond the stars he had always admired from afar. Before he could respond, the sound of rushing footsteps echoed through the garden. A young Violian messenger appeared, his eyes wide. "Princess. Counselor Rillan requests your presence. There is an incident in the outer halls." Even without the princess present, the sense of being an outsider remained. But something had changed. He was no longer just a visitor. Something larger than diplomacy, larger than peace treaties, was beginning, and somehow he had been chosen to be part of it. The incident in the outer halls was soon explained to him by a palace aide. A malfunction in the security system had caused panic among the guards, and some external scouts had tried to infiltrate the grounds. Elias listened carefully, thinking as a human but also trying to understand Virelian logic. He suggested a few measures to prevent future breaches, using a combination of human strategy and improvisation. The aide looked skeptical but took notes. As night fell, the palace transformed. The halls glowed softly, and the twin suns dipped below the horizon, leaving a sky filled with unfamiliar stars. Elias stood by a balcony, looking out over the gardens, the towers, and the vast landscape of Virelia. His heart still raced from the hug, from the council, from the sense that he had stepped into a story far bigger than himself. Then, from behind, a soft voice said, "Do not fear, Elias. You are here for a reason, and I will not let you face this alone." She did not speak of hugs or prophecies this time, but her presence carried the same certainty. Elias knew somehow that nothing in his life would ever be the same again. He had come as a diplomat, expecting to negotiate. But now he realized he had become part of a destiny he could not yet understand, a destiny that began the moment the palace fell silent and the princess hugged him. Elias woke early the next morning, still thinking about the strange events of the previous day. The palace had grown quiet once the night fell, but the echoes of the council, the whispers of the guards, and the warmth of the princess's hug lingered in his mind. He had spent hours staring out at the alien landscape, trying to understand his new place in this strange world. Somehow he felt that the hug was not a mere greeting, it was the start of something much bigger. Breakfast was held in a wide hall filled with soft, glowing lights. The tables were low and the food looked strange yet inviting. Elias tried to eat, but his mind kept wandering to Princess Lyra and the visions she had hinted at. He remembered her words, "You are the one I have seen. The one I have waited for." He shook his head. How could a human like him be part of some prophecy on another planet? An aide approached him, carrying a small device that seemed to float in the air beside her. "Captain Kane, Princess Lyra wishes to speak with you privately before the council meets. She says it is urgent." Elias nodded and followed, curiosity and unease tangled together. They walked through hallways he had not yet explored, passing intricate statues and glowing tapestries. The walls seemed to hum softly, almost like the building itself was alive. He had grown used to the strangeness of Virelia, but each corner still felt like stepping into a new world. Lyra led him to a quiet chamber overlooking a garden where glowing plants swayed in the light of Virelia's suns. The air smelled sweet and a gentle hum seemed to flow through the space. She gestured for him to sit. "You may not understand everything yet," Lyra began, her golden eyes steady. "But you need to know that the threats we face are real, not just for Virelia but for many worlds. Ancient forces that awaken after centuries of sleep. I have seen them in visions. They are powerful, intelligent, and dangerous. And you, your actions, your choices, will be important in the events to come. It is not only about weapons. You see the world differently. Your thinking, your courage, and your ability to adapt, these are strengths that even the most advanced Virelians do not always possess. That is why I reached for you yesterday." Yet looking into her eyes, he felt the certainty in her words. She was not guessing, she knew. Before he could respond, a sudden alarm echoed through the palace. Lights flashed and a soft vibration ran through the floor. Lyra's expression hardened. "They are testing our defenses. Stay here." "Very well, but follow my instructions exactly." The guards followed their standard protocol, moving in precise, calculated formations. He noticed the intruders were exploiting a pattern, a blind spot the Virelians had not considered. Taking a deep breath, he shouted instructions in his clear human voice, surprising both the guards and the invaders. "Shift left, circle back. Use the main doors as bait." She had expected him to observe, maybe advise, but he had jumped into the fight. The invaders were forced back, retreating in confusion. The palace was safe for now. After the commotion ended, the council convened immediately. Whispers ran through the chamber, and the air was thick with tension. Several counselors frowned, unsure whether to trust a human in their midst. Elias stood before them, tired but composed, explaining his decisions and reasoning. A counselor with deep violet skin leaned forward. "You risked yourself and our palace. You acted boldly. But who are you to command our guards?" "I do not seek power. I only wish to protect your people and help maintain peace. For the first time, Elias felt a sense of belonging, not complete acceptance but recognition. He had shown that humans could think differently, adapt quickly, and make a difference. The next few hours were a blur of discussions, demonstrations, and learning. Elias was introduced to Virelia's security systems, communication networks, and strategic plans. He asked questions that the counselors had not considered and offered solutions that seemed unconventional but effective. Slowly, he noticed subtle changes in their demeanor. They were starting to respect him. Lyra stayed near him throughout the day, guiding him but also observing quietly. Occasionally, she would touch his arm lightly or glance at him with a small smile. Elias felt a warmth at these moments, a reminder of the strange hug that had changed everything. He realized that the connection between them was not just symbolic, it was personal, a bond that might carry them through the challenges ahead. As evening approached, Lyra led him back to the garden. The glowing plants and soft hum created a peaceful atmosphere, but Elias could sense her tension. Elias, she said, I have seen more of what is coming. The invaders were only a test, a small part of a larger threat. There are forces moving in the shadows, and they will not wait for us to be ready. There will be moments when you must trust yourself and moments when you must trust others. Your courage will be tested. But another part, a part he had rarely acknowledged, was eager to rise to the challenge, to prove that humans could be more than observers, more than negotiators. Suddenly, a messenger arrived, breathless and urgent. Princess Lyra, there are reports from the outer planets, strange signals, ships moving without identification. They are heading this way. It begins sooner than I expected. Are you ready? Elias stood on the balcony, gazing at the stars. He felt small under the vast sky, yet strangely powerful. He had come as a visitor, a diplomat, a human among aliens. But now he was part of something larger, something that would challenge him, teach him, and perhaps even change the course of history. The palace was quiet again, but Elias knew it would not stay that way for long. The hug, the council, the intrusion, it had all been a beginning. And as he looked at the glowing horizon, he realized that his human mind, his courage, and his unpredictable ways might be the very things that could tip the balance in the events to come. For the first time in his life, Elias did not fear the unknown. He embraced it, ready to face the challenges of a world unlike any he had ever imagined. And somewhere deep inside, he felt the spark of destiny, a spark that had been lit the moment the palace fell silent and the princess hugged him. The universe beyond Virelia was vast, dangerous, and full of mysteries. But Elias Kane, human and unexpected, was ready to step forward and meet it all. The morning on Virelia began with a soft glow as the twin suns rose slowly over the crystalline towers. Captain Elias Kane had slept little, his mind still racing from the previous day's events. The palace seemed alive with anticipation, the air buzzing with whispers of unknown threats and the strange connection between him and Princess Lyra. Every step he took in the halls felt heavier than usual, weighed down by the responsibilities that were slowly settling on his shoulders. Lyra appeared at the entrance of his chamber before he could even finish his morning preparations. Her golden eyes sparkled with a mixture of determination and urgency. Elias, today will be important. We must show the council and the palace guards that humans are capable of more than they believe. You will see the differences between our ways, and you must decide how to use your mind and instincts to help us. Everything was so alien, technology he had never imagined, strategies that required thinking in dimensions he could barely picture. But he tried to focus on the patterns and logic behind it. Lyra led him to a demonstration of a Virelian defense system. Guardians moved with precision, activating energy barriers, coordinating attacks, and tracking simulated invaders with speed and accuracy. Elias watched, analyzing each movement, noticing patterns the Virelians themselves might have overlooked. You notice things differently, Lyra said softly, almost as if reading his thoughts. You see the gaps, the moments when timing and unpredictability can change everything. Sometimes it's about choice, about seeing a moment others ignore. A small change, a quick decision, can turn the tide. I can offer a perspective that may prevent disaster before it even starts. Virelian guards moved with precision, but Elias quickly spotted weaknesses in the timing and positioning. He called out instructions in his human voice, clear and concise, guiding the guards in ways that seemed unusual to them. Shift left, draw them toward the barriers. Push forward here. Lyra watched him closely, admiration growing with each move. She had seen humans before, but none had this combination of observation, courage, and decisiveness. Elia's was proving her vision correct. Humans were capable of brilliance, not just survival. After the exercise, the council reconvened. Whispers and murmurs filled the room. Some counselors were still skeptical, unwilling to admit a human could match centuries of Virelian strategy. Others were intrigued, their curiosity piqued by the unconventional methods that had succeeded. "You act with bravery," one counselor said slowly, "but can bravery alone defend against real threats? It is observation, quick thinking, and the ability to act without fear of making mistakes. That is what I bring. Trust him or learn from him. Either way, he is part of our defense now." Later, he was led to the palace armory, a hall filled with weapons and devices he had never imagined. Lyra handed him a small, sleek device. "This is a scanner and defensive tool. It adapts to the person holding it. Humans are unpredictable, and this will help you channel that unpredictability into defense." "I've never seen technology like this." By the afternoon, the palace was buzzing again, some counselors openly discussing how a human had changed their perspective, others whispering doubts about relying on someone so different. The real test came unexpectedly. A message arrived from scouts on the perimeter of Virelia. Unusual ships were approaching at high speed, unidentified and uncommunicative. The council panicked, some arguing for immediate defense, others for diplomacy. Elias stepped forward. "Wait," he said calmly. "We need to observe first. Their formation, speed, and behavior can tell us more than a direct attack. Let them approach until we understand their intentions, then act decisively." "Do as you see fit, Elias." Instead, we create controlled obstacles and observe reactions. Hours passed, the tension thick in the control room. Slowly, the invaders began to retreat, their strategy failing against the humans' improvisation and quick thinking. The palace erupted in cautious cheers, though some counselors still frowned at relying on a human in such critical moments. Lyra turned to Elias, her golden eyes warm. "You have done more than survive. You have changed the way they see us and the way they see humans. You have shown that courage and insight are not species-bound." He realized that humans were underestimated, not because they lacked strength, but because others failed to understand their adaptability, creativity, and courage. The day continued with debriefing and analysis. Elias offered insights into how the palace could improve defenses, how communication could be strengthened, and how to anticipate the moves of future enemies. Each suggestion was a mix of human logic and creative thinking, a perspective the Virelians were slowly beginning to value. As night fell, Lyra led him to the garden once more. The glowing plants swayed softly in the evening light, and the air carried a gentle hum. Elias felt exhausted but exhilarated. "You did well today," Lyra said softly. "Not just in defense, but in showing them what humans are capable of. They will not forget this day. That is why I reached for you, and that is why the palace will begin to see your value." He felt a sense of destiny slowly settling around him, a feeling that he was part of something far larger than diplomacy or strategy. Suddenly, a messenger arrived, breathless and urgent. "Princess Lyra, sensors detect movement near the outer planets, multiple ships approaching fast. They are not responding to hails. It begins sooner than we thought. Are you ready? Your mind, your courage, and your human unpredictability will be tested like never before." He had come as a visitor, a human among aliens. Now he was a protector, a strategist, and a symbol of unexpected strength. And somewhere deep inside, he knew that the choices he made in the coming days would not just affect Virelia, but the fate of worlds beyond. Elias Kane, human and determined, was ready to face the future, however uncertain, however dangerous. The palace, the princess, and the universe were all watching, and he would not falter. The morning light of Virelia spilled across the crystal towers, but there was no sense of peace in the palace. Captain Elias Kane woke to the sound of alarms, a deep, resonant hum vibrating through the halls. He quickly dressed and followed the sound to the central command room, where the entire council and Princess Lyra were already gathered. The room buzzed with urgency, every Virelian present moving with precision and concern. Lyra's golden eyes were sharp, and her expression was tense. "Elias," she said immediately as he entered, "we have reports of an approaching fleet from the shadow sectors. They are not just scouts. These are warships, heavily armed and moving in coordinated formations. They are here to test our defenses." And yet, as he looked at Lyra, he felt a spark of confidence. She believed in him. That belief had carried him this far, it could carry him further. "What are our current defenses?" Elias asked. The counselor in charge of security, a tall alien with silver skin and piercing eyes, stepped forward. "We have energy barriers surrounding the palace, interceptor ships patrolling the outer perimeter, and automated defense systems. But their numbers are greater than anything we have faced in centuries. We must be unpredictable." He suggested repositioning energy barriers to create traps, using holographic decoys to mislead the enemy ships, and sending small interceptor groups in unexpected directions to confuse their formations. The counselors exchanged uneasy glances. Some doubted the humans' methods, others could not deny their logic. Hours passed in tense preparation. Elias worked tirelessly, analyzing every detail, running simulations, and predicting movements based on subtle clues in the enemy formations. Lyra stayed at his side, her presence both reassuring and motivating. She observed his decisions, occasionally offering guidance but mostly letting him think freely. As the shadow fleet neared Violia, the palace sensors picked up strange behavior. The enemy ships did not attack immediately but instead seemed to communicate silently, adjusting their formation in response to the palace's defenses. Elias studied their movements carefully. "They are testing us," he said. "They want to see how we respond before committing to an attack. If we act too aggressively, we might provoke them unnecessarily. And if we do nothing?" The enemy fleet hesitated, confused by the unexpected human strategies. Elias noticed a subtle pattern. The invaders relied heavily on timing and symmetry. By breaking those patterns, he could gain control of the engagement without risking full-scale destruction. Minutes stretched into hours as the tension grew. The counselors murmured among themselves, some worried, some amazed. The invaders attempted several small strikes, but each time Elias' tactics countered them, using human unpredictability combined with Violian technology. Slowly, the tide began to shift in favor of the defenders. Lyra watched him closely, her expression softening. "You are exceeding my expectations, Elias. Humans are often underestimated, and yet your mind adapts so quickly." Elias suggested a calculated strike, sending a small group of Violian ships to intercept at a point where the enemy would be most vulnerable. The attack was precise, and the retreat turned chaotic for the invaders. By the end of the day, the palace had successfully defended itself without suffering significant damage. The council erupted in cautious applause. Some counselors still muttered doubts about relying on humans, but the majority had witnessed firsthand the effectiveness of Elias' strategies. He had not only saved the palace, but also demonstrated that humans could think differently, offering solutions that no Violian might have considered. Lyra approached him as the room began to quiet. "You have done more than protect the palace. You have changed the way they see humans. They will remember this day for generations. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, and you must be ready for them." He found himself thinking creatively, combining human intuition with alien technology, finding solutions that seemed impossible to the counselors before. As he worked, Lyra joined him once more. "You are different, Elias," she said softly. "Humans often rely on brute strength or numbers, but you rely on thought. That is why I trusted you." "I am grateful for your trust. I hope I can continue to prove it is well placed." He had faced challenges on Earth in diplomacy and combat simulations, but nothing like this. The stakes were incomprehensible, and yet he felt a strange calm. "I will do what must be done. I cannot predict everything, but I will act with what I know and what I learn. I am ready to try." Sometimes courage is not enough, but courage combined with thought, that is what changes the course of events. Elias continued to work alongside Lyra, building plans for defense, scouting potential threats, and helping the palace adapt to human ways of problem-solving. Slowly, the Violians began to respect his ideas, though some remained skeptical. One evening, as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the palace gardens, Lyra and Elias walked together. The glowing plant swayed softly, illuminating the path ahead. "Elias," she said quietly, "the palace sees your value, but you must remember, this is only the beginning. The true threat is not just the Shadow Fleet. There are greater dangers moving in silence, forces that have watched civilizations rise and fall. You must be ready for them. I knew then that you were different, that humans could rise to challenges no one expected." Elias stood on the balcony, gazing at the stars beyond. The universe was vast, filled with unknown threats, but he no longer felt fear. He felt purpose, determination, and a strange excitement at the challenges to come. The Shadow Fleet was only the beginning. Greater dangers awaited, and humans, him in particular, were not expected to be part of the solution. But that was exactly why he was needed. His unpredictability, his courage, and his ability to think differently were exactly what could turn the tide. He did not know what the future held, but he knew one thing clearly. He would face it, alongside Lyra, alongside the palace, and alongside a destiny that had begun the moment the palace fell silent and the princess hugged him. The universe was watching, and Elias Kane, human and remarkable, was ready. The stars above Violia glimmered like scattered crystals, but Captain Elias Kane knew there would be no rest tonight. The palace was on high alert. The Shadow Fleet had returned, larger and more coordinated than before, and intelligence reports suggested another unknown force was moving in from beyond the outer sectors. The council was tense, the guards restless, and the palace itself seemed to hum with anticipation, almost as if it knew that what was coming would test everyone within its walls. Elias stood beside Princess Lyra in the command room, analyzing the incoming fleet. The ships were unlike anything he had ever seen. Dark, angular, and fast, they moved with purpose, their formations tight and their intentions clear. Unlike the previous incursion, these ships did not hesitate. They were not testing defenses, they were attacking. Lyra turned to him, her golden eyes fierce with determination. Elias, we have trained for this moment, but the scale is greater than we expected. Are you ready to lead with me? Predict their moves, mislead them, and strike at the moments they least expect. I will coordinate with your best commanders, but we must act as one. Elias directed each move with precision, combining human intuition with Violean technology. He noticed that the enemy ships relied on symmetry and predictable formations, and he exploited it, guiding Violean forces to create traps and ambush points. Flank them on the left, Elias shouted. Use decoys on the right. Draw them toward the central barrier. She moved with the same grace and authority that had first drawn Elias' attention, her golden eyes scanning every detail, her mind as sharp as a blade. Together, human and princess, they orchestrated the defense, a combination of strategy, intuition, and courage that turned the tide. Hours passed in a blur of energy beams, evasive maneuvers, and tactical adjustments. The Shadow Fleet was powerful, but they were not prepared for the unpredictability of human thinking combined with Violean precision. Elias directed counterattacks, created diversions, and found gaps in their formation that allowed the defenders to strike with maximum effect. Amidst the chaos, he noticed something unsettling. A smaller group of ships, cloaked and fast, had slipped past the outer defenses, heading straight for the palace. Without hesitation, Elias called out orders, directing the palace's best pilots to intercept. He grabbed a nearby control panel and activated energy barriers in a calculated sequence, creating a trap for the cloaked ships. Lyra noticed his quick thinking and smiled briefly, even in the midst of battle. You never stop thinking, do you? Elias coordinated a pursuit, sending Violean ships to intercept and ensure they could not regroup. Finally, after hours of intense combat, the sky above Violia cleared. The Shadow Fleet was defeated or forced to flee, and the palace remained intact. The counselors stared in awe, many silently acknowledging that a human had played a crucial role in saving their world. Lyra approached Elias, her face lit with both relief and pride. You did it. Today you proved that humans can rise to challenges no one expected. You have saved this palace, your presence changed the course of the battle, and you have earned the respect of everyone here. I could not have done it without your leadership and the courage of your people. You have all of these qualities, and you have shown that humans are capable of greatness. You have proven that humans are not to be underestimated. As the celebrations began, Lyra led him to a quiet garden overlooking the palace grounds. The glowing plants swayed in the soft light, and a gentle hum seemed to fill the air. Elias, she said softly, today was not only a victory against our enemies, it was a victory for understanding, trust, and cooperation between our worlds. You have shown that humans can be allies, not just visitors. You have created a bridge between our worlds that will last for generations. He had faced danger, uncertainty, and doubt, and he had prevailed, not through brute force, but through observation, courage, and human ingenuity. Suddenly, Lyra stopped and turned to him, her expression serious. Elias, there will be other challenges. The Shadow Fleet was only one threat. Greater forces exist beyond the known sectors, forces that have watched civilizations rise and fall. But today, we have shown that together, humans and Virelians can overcome what once seemed impossible. You have come far, Elias. From the moment I first hugged you, I knew humans could be different, could rise to challenges no one expected. Today, you have proven it. The hug had seemed simple, almost impulsive, but it had been the start of everything. The bond that led him here, the connection that had guided him through uncertainty and danger. As night deepened, the palace lights reflected on the crystal towers, casting long, soft shadows across the gardens. Elias stood beside Lyra, looking out at the landscape, feeling the calm after the storm. The battle was over for now. The Shadow Fleet had been repelled, the palace was safe, and the council had seen the value of humans firsthand. But he knew this was only the beginning. The universe was vast, filled with unknown threats and endless possibilities, yet he no longer felt fear or doubt. He had proven that humans could rise to challenges no one expected, and he had done so alongside the princess who had trusted him from the start. Lyra looked at him, a faint smile on her lips. Elias, whatever comes next, remember this: courage, thought, and trust are stronger than any weapon. Together, we can face the universe. Elias felt a sense of belonging, a connection to a world he had only just entered, yet already felt a part of. As he looked at Lyra, the stars above, and the palace around him, he realized that humans were more than outsiders, more than diplomats. They were unpredictable, courageous, and capable of greatness that others could not always foresee. And in that moment he felt a deep certainty. Humanity could rise to any challenge, even in the far reaches of the galaxy, and change the course of destiny. The palace had fallen silent once before when the princess had hugged him. Now it buzzed with life, respect, and hope. And Elias Kane, human and remarkable, knew that this was only the beginning of a journey that would carry him across the stars, alongside allies, alongside the princess, and alongside a future full of possibility. He had arrived as a visitor, a human among aliens. He had become a strategist, a hero, and a symbol of unexpected strength. And as he stood in the quiet of the night, watching the twin moons rise, he knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, he would face them. Not alone, but with courage, wisdom, and the trust that had begun with a simple hug in the crystal halls of Violia. The universe was vast, uncertain, and sometimes dangerous, but Elias Kane had learned something vital. When humans rise to meet the impossible, they can achieve greatness beyond imagination. And with that thought, he looked at Lyra, the palace, and the stars beyond, ready for the adventures yet to come.